Friends on YouTube, this is the story of Saint Cyprian, who was born into a wealthy family and whose members were worshippers of false gods, traveled through Egypt and India, and was a great expert in the art of magic, which is why he is called the patron of witches, sorcerers, and magicians. Please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Saint Cyprian, the patron of sorcerers. This is the story of Cyprian of Antioch, the man who walked through the densest shadows of the occult only to be blinded by the ultimate light of the spirit. In the opulent heart of 3rd century Antioch, a child was born into the lap of luxury and pagan aristocracy. His parents, devout worshippers of the Olympian idols, saw in young Cyprian an unsettling intelligence, a gaze that seemed to pierce the veil between worlds. Convinced he was chosen by the gods, they set him on a path of dark enlightenment. From the age of 7, he was consecrated to the service of Apollo, beginning a journey that would transform him into the most formidable sorcerer of the ancient world. At the age of 10, Cyprian was sent to the banks of the Nile and the hidden chambers of Memphis and Thebes. He lived among priests who guarded the secrets of the pharaohs. Under the flickering torchlight of subterranean tombs, he learned the art of theurgy and necromancy. He spent nights whispering to the shadows, learning to summon the spirits of the deceased to reveal secrets of the future. He mastered the movement of the stars and the alchemy of poisons. Egypt did not just teach him magic, it hollowed out his soul, filling it with a hunger for absolute power over the living and the dead. Seeking even deeper mysteries, Cyprian traveled to the distant east, reaching the mystical lands of India. Here, the narrative takes a turn into the supernatural. He lived among the gymnosophists and forest ascetics, learning to control the very essence of life. In India, he mastered bilocation, the ability to be in 2 places at once, and levitation. He learned to manipulate the prana, or vital energy, discovering how to wither a man's limb with a mere glance or command the elements to stir into a storm. He returned to the Mediterranean not as a man but as a living legend. A grand magus feared by kings and whispered about in the corridors of Roman power. Back in Antioch, Cyprian's fame reached its zenith. He was the patron of sorcerers, a man whose laboratory was filled with blood-stained scrolls and demonic talismans. However, his life of dark triumph was about to face a dynamic and unexpected collision. A wealthy youth sought Cyprian's help to seduce Justina, a Christian virgin who had vowed her life to God. Confident in his power, Cyprian summoned the most potent demons of lust and obsession. He sent them to cloud Justina's mind, to break her will and drag her into the youth's arms. But then, the intrigue deepened. Every time the demonic shadows lunged at Justina, she simply made the sign of the cross. The demons recoiled in agony, fleeing back to Cyprian in terror. "Why do you tremble before a mere girl?" Cyprian roared, his laboratory shaking with his fury. The Prince of Darkness himself answered in a hollow, trembling voice. "The god she serves is a power we cannot touch. Before the sign of her king, we are nothing but dust." The tension snapped. In a moment of profound psychological drama, Cyprian realized he had been the slave of a lie. At 35 years old, at the height of his sorcerer's career, he committed an act of incredible defiance. He gathered his vast library of magic books worth a fortune and burned them in the public square. The smoke from his burning grimoires signaled the death of the magician and the birth of the saint. He abandoned his silk robes for a humble tunic and sought out the local bishop, begging for the waters of baptism. Cyprian's conversion was not a quiet retreat but a dynamic surge of faith. His intellect, once used for destruction, now built the foundations of the early church. He rose through the ranks with remarkable speed, eventually being named Bishop of Carthage. His reign was one of constant conflict and adrenaline. He led his flock during the brutal persecutions of Emperor Decius, writing letters of fire and hope from hiding places and prisons. He was no longer summoning spirits, he was summoning the courage of martyrs. The final act of his life was a masterclass in serenity. Captured by Roman authorities, he refused to sacrifice to the idols he once served. Standing before the executioner, he showed no fear. In a final gesture of humility and grace, he ordered that 25 gold pieces be given to the man who was about to behead him for giving his executioner in advance. Cyprian died by the sword, a martyr whose blood sealed a legacy of total transformation. He remains the bridge between the world of shadows and the world of light, a reminder that no soul is too far gone to find the way home.